what I'm about to kind of share over the next 50 minutes or so, 60 minutes or so, is essentially my experience and my journey. I mean, a little bit about me, other than my last name rhymes with whiskey, is I've got almost 12 years with RBC and lucky to work for such a fantastic organization. And I've hosted somewhat of a similar career session internally in some of my previous roles and ongoing for Haskayne students. But over the past 12 years, I guess, there are some things that I've done well and things that I would do over. But one of the things that I do want to start off by saying is I get asked a lot, like what's led to my success. In 12 years, I have had 7 different roles. So it has gone extremely fast. I've pivoted a number of times, and I've heard, themes from this morning, or I say this morning, from an hour ago. This afternoon's session was around pivots, what are your strengths, networking. You're going to hear some of the common themes. But what I soon became, realized through the help of coaches and mentors in my own personal journey was that your performance and your resume and your history and experiences will only get you so far. There's other things that you need to do. So I've got like 7 slides max. I'd like it to be engaging, even though I don't really have any breakout exercises. So if you do have questions, just put your hand up. I'm quite flexible. I'd rather it be a dialogue versus me just kind of throwing information. But that's all I wanted to say, is that you're going to hear some common themes, so continue to ask questions, and hopefully you guys walk away with some added tips. So I love quotes, and I thought I'd start off with a quote, because when I read this in one of John Maxwell's books, it certainly resonated with me. So I'm going to read it. I had a strategy, hard work. I hoped that would get me where I wanted to go, but working hard doesn't guarantee success, and hope isn't a strategy. And what stood out for me, so I read a book called The 15 Laws of Invaluable Growth maybe 6 years ago, when I started to strategically plan for my career, because the first 6 years of my career, I'd probably say, this is how I performed it. I didn't think about branding and what does my brand have to do with it. So you're going to hear me talk about 3 different strategies and how does that all link to branding, and how do you kind of harness your brand, how do you figure out your brand. It's a hard thing to do. Your brand will probably evolve, but this is how this was my strategy. It was hard work. And a lot of people tend to rely on their past experiences or their performance to get them their next role. And I certainly have a lot of conversation with employees internally at RBC, even though I'm in a commercial banking role and I'm in the tech sector. My last role was HR. And I'd say it was by fluke that I landed in HR. It was never on my career path. But talk about a pivot, that was another pivot for me, where I wanted to go one way and an opportunity did present itself. I was lucky in that time. And I took advantage of it. But so the HR and talent management, it taught me a lot about how organizations, and I know I'm speaking biasly from RBC, but majority of the big organizations plan for talent, plan for pipeline, plan for employee development. And so it got to a point where I needed to start thinking differently in terms of where is my performance going to get me. And in fact, performance in my mind, again, full disclosure, this is my perspective, performance gives you the right to put your hand up. It doesn't earn you your next role. And that's what I coach to a lot of times, because I meet with dozens and dozens every week. Even though I've left the HR role 3 years ago, not a week goes by where I'm not having a career conversation with somebody internally or externally. And I'll always say, talk to me about your performance. And then I get to branding. But talk to me about your performance, and are you meeting plan? Yada yada. And they say, yes, I've met plan. And my answer to that is great. And like I just said, that gives you the right to put your hand up. It doesn't give you your next role. So I am going to just kind of give you the what. What is personal brand? Because this is probably what you can relate to in 3 different definitions or terms. And what I'd like to spend the bulk of our time today is kind of the how do you build a brand. Does that work? Is any of this new for you? Has anybody taken a course on branding?
No.
Okay. Yeah. So feel free to jump in and add along. So the how. So in my perspective over the 12 years, this is how I define, and this is how I continue to plan. I always think that branding is one of the elements, and I'm going to tie in branding to all 3. But to have a successful career, you need all three. You need personal, you need performance, and you need to plan. In the absence of one, yes, you could still have a successful career, but it helps when you cover off all three bases. So, know yourself. You guys talked about this. It sets your values, your strengths, weaknesses, skills, and interests. And then I threw in 2 laws. Laws of awareness, you must know yourself to grow yourself. And the law of the mirror, you must see value in yourself to add value to yourself. So, 3-step process in identifying your strengths, and I know you guys kind of already talked about it with Andrea and Cheryl. Identify your strengths, find out how people view you today, and understand what attributes are valued by your current employer. I'm going to start off with the first one, even though you guys just talked about it 20 minutes ago. Identify your strengths. A big part of this comes down to your brand, and it is very hard to do. So I'm going to rewind in time. Probably it was about 6 or 7 years ago. I was a first-time sales leader in the organization, and this is back in Ottawa, so I spent 9 years in Ottawa, and I've been 3 years out west. So while I was in Ottawa, I was mid-20s. First-time sales leader, lucky to manage a branch at that time, and I was told I was going to be given a mentor. And again, I had put no emphasis on my brand at this point. This is why I needed to start. So I was told by one of our VPs that we're going to partner with a mentor. So I had given it some thought too. Okay, well, what does that really mean? And who would I like as a mentor if they give me the choice? And so met with one of our VPs, and I didn't have the choice, but I was happy with the outcome because it was one of our EVPs from Toronto. So had lunch with our EVP, one of our EVPs, and I'm thinking, okay. Again, I planned a little bit, but I didn't because I felt like I was good off the spot, quick thinker. And so went for lunch, and one of the first questions she asked me, and there was a role that the largest branch in Ontario, it was a $1 billion book, was available. So there was a job posting for it. And me, mid-20s, at the time, 1.5 years of sales leadership experience. I might have had 3 different roles before that, but still, I didn't have deep sales leadership experience. I put my hand up for it, and I was competing against sales leaders across Canada who have 10 years of management experience. It's a huge branch. And so she knew that I wanted to put my hand up for it, and one of the first things she asked me was, what's your competitive edge? Again, I'm pretty sure she's asking me what my strengths are. And I defaulted to, what would I say on my resume, or what do I have on there? What have I said in past interviews, and what do you think I said? What are some of the strengths that you guys? Hard worker, what else?
Lots of hopes.
Team player.
Team player, results oriented. Good with time management. Organized. Great communicator. Yeah, I learned quickly, do not say those. And I am going to be transparent. You guys know more than anything, it's a competitive workplace out there, especially in Alberta right now, over the past couple years. Employers want to know what makes you different than the 400 other applicants that they are getting at a quick glance. That's going to be their first screening. And how are you adding value to their team and to their organization? And that is the biggest thing that people don't plan for. So how does that relate back to your brand? I'll carry on the conversation. So I looked at her, again, one of our EVPs, and I said, well, I think I'm a really good coach, is what I said, because I was a branch manager. And what do you think all branch managers have? Coaching. Who else is applying to this role? Every other coach across Canada, right? So again, our regional president needed to make that decision to say, why am I going to put Corissa in the role versus anybody else who does have 10 years sales leadership experience? What does Corissa have that's uniquely different that team or that unit or that branch needs? So I looked at her and I said coaching, and she said, great, Corissa, that's awesome that you think you're a really good coach. And your team has, said the same, but at the end of the day, she goes, who do you think is applying for this role? And that's exactly what I said. Other branch managers. Okay, I have nothing else to say because I was relying on my performance and who I was what I felt like as a sales leader. I let the role define me. I let the role define my strengths, which is a big fault, I guess, that you shouldn't do. So I picked up a book, and now you see What's Your Competitive Edge, the Purple Cow. So this is my second book that I had read on career branding, and I had a friend of mine tell me about it, and the author is Seth Godin. Has anybody read The Purple Cow? So I'll give you the 30-second spiel on it, but you can still look it up. The Purple Cow, it's a marketing book, it's brand marketing, it's for organizations, and it helps organizations brand themselves. So I read this book, and the whole notion is, let's say you're driving by a field of cows every day on your route to work. Does that happen to anybody here? Okay. And one day you drive by and you see a purple cow. What does your head do? It turns. Hopefully you don't hit the car in front of you, but you turn, you take a moment. And so the whole notion is that how are you a purple cow when you're in front of an employer, when you're in front of a senior leader, when you're in front of your peers, your mentors, your network, at a conference. When you have 30 seconds to make an impression, and we go back to the what is your brand, and in business terms, it's your value proposition. How do you deliver that? It's hard to do. So I read the book, that's the whole notion of a purple cow and branding, and why that matters, and why you absolutely need to define what your strengths are and what your skill sets are. Despite work experience, go back, dig deep, look at some of the other experiences or community involvement that you've had. What makes your experience uniquely different, and you uniquely different than the 400 other people that are putting their hand up? So I read this book, and it took me a week to figure out what my strength was, because here we are. I still have this job that I really wanted. And I remember I actually picked up the book, and I was flying to New York City. My sister lived there at the time. And I remember walking through Central Park. She just had a baby, and I'm going, Danika's her name. I said, Danika, what do you think I'm good at? And this is where you go to solicit the feedback, find out how other people view you. I do that often. I'm going to talk about that, but I said, what do you think I'm good at? And she gave me the good old family response, you're good, you're a hard worker. I went, okay. Anyway, so I literally, what I had to do is pen to paper, and I know that there's tools that you guys said are available, which is great. I think that that's awesome, but some of those tools, and RBC has them too, and they can be very generic, like I'm going to say command, I'm going to use yours for it, but some of the responses that you get from some of those tools, you just want to try to figure out, well, how do you pivot or tweak the name so it means something different? So for me, what I determined, I wrote it down, I said, okay, well, what do I think I'm good at, and what are other people saying? And it came down to employee engagement, believe it or not. And that comes down to understand what attributes are valued by your current employer. That can be hard to do when you're in the process of putting your hand up to apply for a job for an organization you know something about, but you don't have the full details. But I knew employee engagement mattered to our organization. It is near and dear to their heart. They care about their clients, they care about their employees. And I also knew that the branch that I was applying to was one of the worst performing branches in Canada, even though it was the largest one. They had gone through a number of turnover, and I felt that the culture was broken there. I felt, and through feedback, that I was an engaging leader. And I do that through coaching. I can lead a high-performing team. So I coach, but I have a different style of coaching, and I think I tie in culture together, and that ultimately drives employee engagement. And what do you think executive leaders want on their team? Somebody who can coach and can drive engagement, right? So now all of a sudden coaching means something completely different to the people that I'm going through that interview. And I will say, and I still say this, I tell my president this all the time, I said I was probably your A candidate on your B list at first glance, right? When you're looking at the length of time I've been in other roles or sales leadership experience. I will say when I left that interview, I had that gut feeling that I knew I got the job because I know I presented myself and I articulated my business case and I articulated why me and the value that I will bring to the team, and I did get the job. At a very young age, late 20s, managing $1 billion book, and I've continued to use some of those principles around my branding, and other roles have transformed it. Like I've hosted some of these sessions, I've met with a whole commercial banking team in Ontario. We have cruise winners. We're lucky to, there's about 800 of us that get sent on a cruise every year. And one of our top performing sales individuals who has potential to be a CEO one day for our organization. And I sat in a room and I was speaking and he was in the room and he called me. I didn't know this guy at all. Anyway, so he was, this was when I was in the HR role, and he was in Barrie and I was in Ottawa. And after I left the Barrie market, he called me and he said, Corissa, I don't know if you remember me, I was in the audience when you presented to our team. And he goes, and I remember the piece on branding, and he goes, I'm like the best salesperson that the team has probably ever seen, and we know that about him. He's a good sales guy. And he said, if you were to ask me what my strength is, I would have said, I'm a closer, like I'm good at sales, or I'm relationship sales. But then he goes, I quickly realized everybody in the organization is good at relationship sales. That's what we do, right? We give advice, and yes, sales are a result of that, but it's that whole relationship piece. And he goes, it took him a week. He called me a week later. He goes, I literally had to do pen to paper, same thing. And he goes, what I've realized my strength is emotional intelligence. He goes, I have an exceptional ability to read my audience and understand my audience and tweak his value proposition or whatever his advice is to that consumer or CFO or CEO. So again, I share do those examples help? Mm-hmm. Okay, I share them because I know it's hard to define, but they're real life examples, and I've sat in on a number of interviews, like probably 100. I've been with sales leaders and executives that put people, like, you know, they get ranked in their top 3, and what's gonna make them, I hear the tough questions. I've asked them. So based on your experience, how do you plan to help shape my team's culture? How do you plan to add value to my organization and my team? Can you tell me a time where you've done that in a past role? So this is your brand. You have to be able to figure it out. I find a lot of people do one and then they stop. They don't necessarily ask for feedback for others. Asking for feedback is a hard thing. You feel shy, you feel nervous. What happens if they say something bad? Take the good, the bad, the ugly, take it all. It's not going to change who you are. It'll help shape, probably, or make you think a little bit differently, but I think it's critically important that you spend time on this, because this is your brand. Any questions? Okay, so I did put some examples together, and don't feel like you got to write this down. You could, sure. Yes, go with us. But I did put some examples just to give you a sense. So branding statement, she has really creative ideas. Attributes, so this is how others may see her. Her ideas don't seem to come from deep thinking, but rather lateral thinking. This person is always a good choice for a team that needs to break out of a rut or achieve something new, and the strength, able to think outside the box. I'll let you guys read the next couple. When an employer looks at your resume, they have to see your brand come out. Right now, like, they just see words on paper. They see your experience, which I'm gonna get to because that's your performance, right? But a lot of people have performance. So again, a recruiter or a hiring manager, when they're looking at your resume and they're looking at a lot, they wanna know, you know, in 30 seconds, is it Mayerly? What do I think this, you know, 1 or 2 pages is gonna say about Mayerly? In there, and I say personal and professional accomplishments, like if you have, because I meet with students all the time and they're going, well, I don't really, you know, I haven't led a team, or I haven't had the opportunity to achieve 120% sales growth year over year, or whatever your metric is. Be specific if you can, and if not, go back to your experiences. Personally, I like a mix of both. If running a marathon was on there, what does that tell me about you? My goal is to run a 10K, so I should add that. Yeah, what would that tell you about the candidate that you're interviewing? Disciplined, committed, dedicated. You don't need to write that on the skills, under skills and qualifications. I am expecting you to be qualified, like have those basic skills, but running a marathon, or I met with a student when we were hiring him, this was back in Ottawa, and I said, tell me something about yourself that's not on this resume, that speaks to your brand, and something that you're most proud of. And again, he took some time to think about it, because I just wanted to hear something authentic at the same time, and tell me something that's not on your resume. And he said, paying for my university all on my own. Again, it tells me something about somebody's character and who their brand, like what their brand is, right? And the values that they carry. Yeah, there are opportunities all around you. I always say, what's the risk if you don't take it? What are you losing by not taking it? Are you waiting out for that one opportunity that may or may not come? Take something, gain from it. If not, you know what you're good at. I'm sure you could go back to the field that you were once in. But if anything, it's going to give you breadth of experience.
You said something there about plan for roles, not experience.
Plan for experiences, not roles. That's the biggest pitfall that a lot of people do. And that's natural. Compensation drives it, right? People climb, they do one role, and they want to get paid more. That's natural. But if you chase roles all the time, you're going to shortchange yourself on, you have your blinders on. So, and I took that advice from our head of Canadian banking. So she reports into our CEO, the second highest person out of our 80,000 people at RBC. I had a conversation with her. I was lucky to be a cruise winner a few years ago, and I remember talking to her, and that's what she said. And just talking to her about her journey and some of the roles that she's had. And she said, my best advice is take the first 10 to 15 years of your career and plan for experiences, not roles. So I have always taken control of my career. That's why I believe nobody can mess with my brand. They can say stuff about you, and you hopefully it's in a positive context, but my brand, I own it. And I feel like this next, I'm going to get to 2 more slides. I try to influence through communication every time I have the opportunity to speak. So when you're speaking at a networking event, it doesn't have to be in front of an audience, right? Not everybody's comfortable with public speaking. But anytime you are speaking at an industry event or to a community leader or volunteering, that's your opportunity to influence and to create. I always say I'm creating my own empire. That's how I believe, like it's in an authentic way. But how do I create supporters and advocates in the community, Andrew being one of them, that can help build my brand and raise my profile and help elevate my performance? Because a person, this is probably for most organizations. You're all familiar, it's either happened to you or, a parent. It's not who's got the most tenure anymore that's next in line. Would you agree?
Yes.
The reason why that's changed, do you guys know the reason why that's changed? Take a stab. Best leaders, new ideas, innovations, yeah.
Growth mindset.
Yep. Companies will plateau and leaders are going to plateau. So if you're a person that's only ever seen the organization and only gone in one way and it's been vertical and you've just put in your time, but you haven't been the best person for the role and you're just the next one to be promoted because tenure has gotten you there. A leader that just does this, when you get to the top of the ladder, how does it feel? Maybe good for a little bit, but how does the ladder feel? Shaky, probably, right? You're kind of probably gripping on with 2 hands. So if you're an individual that's, I see organizations now are matrix organizations where you build in different areas and you jump maybe from strategy to HR to, if you can. But if you could jump different platforms and go in and out of field and strategy and operations and just see the organization from a few different perspectives, when you get to the top, how does that feel? A lot more stable. So that's why things have changed nowadays, right? You got to plan differently. So I'm just going to get to the second one here. This is a quick slide. So there was 3 things. The first one was personal. The second one is performance. The third one is plan. But on performance, I'm literally going to spend a minute on this. You guys know it better than me. It's either going to be your individual or team performance, whatever experience you've had. People are going to want to know that you've performed, you've met expectations, if not exceeded expectations. That has earned you the right or degrees and designations. And again, a pitfall or a common mistake is that a lot of people rely on their degree or designation or their experience to get them the next role. Performance is just one aspect of your brand. Right? You can be a top performer and that can be part of your brand, but you can't just let that define you. There's got to be more to it. Oh, sorry. So, and then the last one is planning, and this is a little bit of a busy slide, and I just want to kind of go through some of the things here. This I can't emphasize enough. I do a lot of it, and I still feel like I don't do enough of it. I feel like I have to be strategic in a lot of things that I do. Why am I jumping on this association? Why am I getting involved in this volunteer project? RBC asks me to do a lot, like internally, and jump here and jump there, and can you do this? And I'm grateful that they proactively reach out, but a lot of times I like to source them myself to say if I'm going to do it, I want to be able to take on this role or add this type of impact because I'm hoping to learn a new skill. A conversation I had in my mid-20s when I was given a mentor. She was the EVP. Her first question was, what's your competitive edge? I failed that miserably. Her second question was, how do you strategically plan for your career? And I looked at her and I went, I just work hard and I hope that my performance and my coaches and my VPs and sales leaders recognize my hard work. I didn't put more than any of that, like any more thought into it. Yep.
I think we're, just as a society, we're generally groomed to think from top down because you're 6 years old. What do you want to be? What are you going to do? So we're always getting that, well, this is where I want to be. I want to be a doctor, lawyer, fireman, whatever it is, right? And it's always, well, you need to get these grades so that you could become your doctor, lawyer, fireman. So there's really no sort of grounding to think about from the bottom up. Well, learn these skills, learn these skills, learn these skills, and then build on those, and then you'll eventually form a pyramid rather than the ladder that you're talking about.
So you're absolutely right, but there's no right or wrong on this. So, and in fact, there's going to be a combination of both. But my answer, I'm just kind of sharing some of my experiences. I had nothing to say. I said hard work. And then she said, Corissa, I'm going to ask you again. That was my second chance at answering the question. She goes, the key word is strategic. So I think people plan for their career. They have a general sense of what they want to be when they grow up, or what would their dream job be, or where do they want to land, or what organization do they want to work for. But creating a strategic roadmap is often where people fail, and it's hard to do. So let me give you an example. I was planning from the bottom up, and now I try. And bottom up also means sometimes you need to see the organization. You're not just going to come in from above. You need to do some roles in the field and a variety of roles. Because then if you do aspire to be a leader, and maybe you don't know if you want to be a leader in another 10 years, but should that time come, I think you'll be more confident and you'll have the experience and credibility to go with, to go along with it. But top down means if take your dream job. So if I'm saying I want to be a market leader, and here I am, let's just pretend I didn't have, or I only had some sales leadership experience, but I meet with people who are a branch manager, and they say I want to be a regional president or a market leader of some sort, or a regional leader, and they're saying, but I want to put my hand up for a larger branch. Okay, we just have different sizes of branch. I'm going, great, what is that other branch going to give you? And they're going to say, well, greater responsibility, my staff goes from 10 employees to 20, so maybe some, again, greater complexity, responsibility, a larger book of clients, more volume. That's great. How is that going to help you in the long term? And it will, but are there other roles that are going to help you even more? And what I mean by that is, why don't you go do a different role that's going to give you market responsibility, greater complexity, the ability to manage a high-performing team, maybe even remote management, right? Some sales leaders have their branch all in one physical location, and then we have community leaders that you got to manage people over at this branch and this branch. Maybe you lead different, maybe you be a market leader in financial planning, and I know I'm RBC specific here, but maybe you go to small business or commercial leader. So go be a leader, go do it in a different business, get outside retail. And that's my advice all the time is take the job description of the role you want, if you have a general sense, and start to plan for what are the roles that you need to take that are going to fill in the gaps to help you get there. So that's a little bit about how you should plan for the career. Your development, I know this is kind of career related and not so much branding. I'll get to the branding on the network piece, but what does your development look like? This is a matter of fact, 70% of your experience is going to come from all the job experience. 20% is coaching, mentoring, sponsoring, and 10% is formal learning. Mentors and sponsors. Do you guys know the difference between coaches, mentors, sponsors? Are they all the same? I get asked that all the time too. How do I find a mentor? How do I know if I have a mentor? How do I get a sponsor? It's a little bit of both. Sometimes they're given to you. I've been given mentors and sponsors, and other times I'd probably say I've sought out mentors and sponsors more so than I've been giving it people my way. The difference, it's an easy track. Coaches, you talk to your coach, which is often your manager or a manager. Coaches you talk to, mentors you talk with, sponsors you talk talk for you. So 2, with, and 4, and that is the biggest difference. And you might have all 3. You might have 1 at certain points of your career, you might have none. Mentors and sponsors, though, I'd say are the critically important, and that's how, what I've leveraged to build my brand. A mentor should want to work with you, and I think your brand is going to be a big value proposition in terms of why they're going to dedicate time in working with Michael?
Yes.
Yeah, in working with Michael, right? Especially if you're going to seek them out, you got to be strategic in what's your ask. What do you want to learn from them? How do you plan to help each other? And what are you hoping the outcome is? And sponsors are typically executives, senior executives, that talk for you, that are saying, you want to know what? Michael is not even in the room. Michael's doing his job, but you need to take Michael for this role, because if you don't, you're going to miss out on the fact that he's this, and this. And so that's the difference. You need to seek them out. If you can't find them within your current employer, find them in the community, find them in your network. Reactive and proactive. I mean, I've talked a lot about, like, just take experiences. You guys have talked about it. Take opportunities. Believe it or not, public speaking was not my strength either. I remember doing business presentations in university, and I'd literally, go up there with my stack of pages, and I'd have to write pause, breathe between sentences, because I am naturally a fast speaker, and in my head I'm thinking slow, but to the audience I was not. The amount of times that I've put my hand up, nervous as heck, in front of executives, going paperless, and I'm going, again, goes back to take the first 10 to 15 years of my career and build on the experiences. I've taken almost every opportunity to speak in front of an auditorium, or to speak on panel pitches and competitions and whatnot, to practice my public speaking. Because if being an executive matters to me, and having the capability and confidence, now's my time to do it. Even though it feels uncomfortable, and that's why I say get comfortable being uncomfortable. You're gonna feel uncomfortable in so many things that you do, but it's the only way you're gonna grow, and your brand will continue to evolve. Building your network. So hopefully you all have a network. It's how you leverage it, and it's how you're visible in that network. It would be a shame if any of you attended an industry conference and you walked away with 0 contacts or 0 relationships, or that I hate to say it, but you didn't stand out enough for people to remember you. So again, at a conference, and I've seen it, I've had some of my colleagues go to conferences, and I'm going, okay, if you need to cultivate this relationship and you want to work with this organization, this is, you gotta give a little bit more, but you gotta be strategic in those conversations. How many of you, before you attend an industry event, ask for the guest list? Great. Was that one hand? Why is it important to ask for, if you can, if you know who's organizing it and they're willing to share, why would it be important? Why are you going to the industry conference? To learn. I'm sure that there's going to be speakers, and you're going to walk away with valuable information. But why not maximize your time? Like, you're going there for a purpose, whether it's an introduction or potential employer. That's how you build your network. I moved to Calgary without a network. That was one of my biggest fears. But I knew what would save me. Like, I don't even have family here. All my family is either in BC or in Ontario, and I'm going, how am I going to do this? I spent 9 years in Ottawa, where I was covering Ontario North and East. So I probably had 3,000 people kind of under my territory in one of the last strategy roles I had. And I felt like I was known. And I'm leaving that behind, even though I felt like I'm not really, because I could still have a visible presence and a brand digitally, right, with technology. I'm not going to be forgotten, but how do I go recreate that out west? I don't know anybody here. I knew 2 people. But I knew, in my mind, I'm an extrovert. I knew I wasn't shy, and I said, okay, well, I'm going to get out in the community, and how can I help? How can I add value? And I'll meet people. But I just had to be strategic when I meet somebody, that I need to demonstrate why I would add value to whatever project team or organization they're with, and how to cultivate those relationships. And in 3 years, I'd probably say, based on my time in Ottawa, what I have in 3 years probably took me 9 years in Ottawa to do. So everybody has the opportunity to do it. It's just, you guys are out all the time. And it's a shame if you walk away without any value add or any additional contacts, because to me, that's how I say you build your own empire, whether you're you're employed or unemployed. You don't know who you're gonna meet or who's gonna give you the next job. Or I get asked, I'm a commercial banker, and my clients ask me all the time, do you know some, Corissa, they'll send me job postings, that's not even what I do. But they're going, okay, like, you know, yes, I take care of their credit and financials and accounts and whatnot, but a lot of times I'm hiring for a senior director to help me expand into this market, or do you know somebody that's good at this? Great, it'd be a shame if I walked away and I didn't get to know any of you guys that I could say, go meet so-and-so. Because you never know what opportunities, people are looking for talent out there. And to me, that speaks, again, your network will help build your brand, but you could also insert your brand into whatever network. Hopefully I related the brand piece a lot to the personal performance and planning. Those are my personal experiences. I'd love to hear feedback, or if it's added any value or helpful.
Following from the last conversation about network building, how do you strike out what's the best way to strike a conversation to talk about
You want to what?
job?
Oh, to talk about a job?
Or-
I would, yeah, I wouldn't start there, but networking is uncomfortable for a lot of people. But what I've realized, go say hi. I mean, I had a friend's birthday yesterday, and there was 20 of us at dinner, and I'm sitting at a table, and I didn't know somebody all the way across, and I literally walked over. I said, I haven't met you yet, but I'm going to go say hi, because she's probably thinking, oh, I'm just too shy to go introduce myself. Does everybody feel shy making the first move? So just, great, that's awesome if you don't. We need more people like you, Angela. But that's what I mean, just go say hi. What are they gonna do, ignore you? Say no? I don't wanna talk to you? They're gonna introduce themselves back. Say, what brought you here? How do you know so-and-so? What did you think about the event? Like, those are kind of the...
I just been my sort of experience having come back from South Africa is that people here tend to be very industry focused rather than on the skill set focus. So how do you overcome that when you've got the skill sets that they're looking for, but you don't know the industry? You could do all the research, but you don't have the 5 years in the specific industry that they're looking for. But then they name every other skill, and you're like, I can learn your industry.
I feel the same way. So I think and don't get me wrong, there's some people too at our organization that hire that way. I don't believe in that. I hire on behavior. Did I get along with you? Is it a cultural fit? Is it a values fit? Do you come with some of the experiences, and can I teach you the other? You can learn the industry, but I need to know that you can learn it based on some of the other experiences. So that's a tough one for me to answer, because every employer is going to be different, and maybe sometimes roles do require industry experience or that technical focus. The question is, how do you go get it without actually doing the job? Are there different associations that you can join that, or a tip? I've done this before. When I wanted to get connected with a leader and learn more about commercial, one of our leaders back in Ottawa, he was very highly regarded. He now manages risk management for Canada. But I wanted to get to know him better, and he's not the type that really has an open door policy. He's smart at what he does, great guy. People loved working for him, but he doesn't really give off that warm and fuzzy or easy to talk to or small chat, and I'm going, that's where I excel. How am I going to get to know this guy, right, and pick his brain? I knew he sat on the board for Ronald McDonald House, and I knew I was looking to get involved in the community, so I joined the board. I didn't join the board, I joined as a volunteer. So I would see him at market events, and that's how I created more of a relationship with him outside our organization than inside our organization. So but that was a genuine thing that I needed to do, is get involved in the community back in Ottawa. So I ended up being strategic, and I'm going, well, I might as well join Ronald McDonald House if some of our leaders are there and I want to get to know them. And I don't have access to them in any other way. So I say you got to be strategic in terms of how you're going to fill that gap, because if you hear the same response that, well, you need industry experience, and you don't have industry experience, but you feel that you could really do the job, how are you delivering that in the interview, and how are you presenting yourself, or how do you go get some of that experience without doing that actual job? So it's got to be through volunteer work or just different projects or assignments that you can find. Or get a mentor. Find out who can be an advocate in the community, or that knows somebody that can help profile you to say, you need to take Roger because he's done this, and I'm telling you, he will learn it. And you also need a little bit of luck and somebody to take a chance on, no doubt.
We'll take one more question.
Yeah.
So where do we, if there's one recommendation from you, where do we start? Like, I've never had any personal, even thought about my brand.
Brand.
Is it books?
Yeah, you could read, I mean, you could read 15 Laws of Invaluable Growth or Purple Cow. I kind of gave you the Purple Cow notion, like that's, the whole book is around kind of positioning yourself. I mean, I still do pen and paper. Exercises and the tools, maybe even start there with what's available through the Career Center. And again, that may help narrow it down, but I honestly think just saying, what do I feel that I'm good at? Write it down on paper, ask friends, families, colleagues to say, what do you think I'm good at? Like, why do people want to work with me or for me? I always said that. Why are people drawn to me? What is it about me? And I need to articulate it and ask them to articulate it. Where do they see my weaknesses? Ask that too. I know for me, global perspective is something that I'm working on. I'm really good at understanding the world of work inside the organization and how to navigate through. I need to understand external factors and what's going on globally to be a better leader, to speak to it, you know, just not internally at RBC. So that's feedback that I've had that I'm going, okay, how do I build that in to my daily routine to have a better global perspective. Hence why I'm hoping to go Canada. Side note. Yeah, but honestly, nothing beats pen and paper and asking for feedback, and then just understanding if you do have a current employer and you're looking to progress, finding out what are their core values, like what's their selection process, what do they value are you an individual contributor, are you a leader, like you need to find that out, are you best fit for hey, I just like dealing with patients, or no, I'm more of a team, I don't need to be, are you a specialist, a generalist, figuring that stuff out about yourself. You got some homework, it took me a week, so it's not like it's just gonna, maybe, hopefully it comes to you sooner, but, and it's evolved. For me, my 3 competitive strengths, 6 years ago, I said it was employee engagement, while it still very much is employee engagement. I would also say that I've got high capacity. I know my regional president, if he were to say today, he's like, I know I could hire Corissa because she could take on this many projects and still perform at a high level of performance. And then I say I'm also resilient. And I can back that up through, I moved myself across the country. Like, you know what I mean? I am resilient. I can go through a lot and not let it really affect performance, or I can just slide right into a new region or a new role and learn it. But I think those 3, employee engagement, high capacity, and resiliency, yes, I'm a strong performer and other things, but it's expected you're coming to the role with that. I think that you got to think it just a little bit more creatively as to how you define yourself and how you're going to add value to the company.
And the feedback piece is so important. Most coaches use that. They make sure that individuals are willing to get that piece of feedback when you go to coaching. And the feedback for you is you're fantastic. I'm a huge fan, obviously. We want to thank you so much for coming today, Corissa.
Thank you.